And that day, I was in Gisborne waiting to come home. And I found out through a phone call by my daughter, who was screaming, and I couldn't hear her. And she was screaming. This is my 23-year-old. And she was terrified, and I was terrified for her, and I had to try and calm her down. This is what's happening. But I knew something was happening because I heard everything smash, the side of the house collapsing, asking her where she is, but she kept rambling, and I just made her talk. I managed to get through to my husband asking if he's all right. He says, it's just, you could just hear the boulders coming down. I said, what's that? And he says, it's a boulder falling onto the road. And I went, boulder, where are you? And he says, I'm just coming out of the tunnel. And it wasn't until probably 4 hours that I heard from the school. I got through to the school and asked how the children were. And my daughter, Shara, was on the jungle gyms at the time. And this is the one that had the fear of the earthquake. And I knew straight away she would not be dealing very well. Finally got there and finally saw my children. And I think my first words were, I'm so proud of you. I'm absolutely so proud of you for being so brave. And that was the first words that came out of my mouth. And then I just cried. And then I said, but Mummy's here now. And so the next day came, and then we knew straight away we had to get our children out. Because when I flew in, I just knew that it was bad because you still saw smoke. I knew that something horrible had happened. So we got in our car and we left. And we got over to Picton, and his family, my husband's family, met us in Picton. And we dropped them off to them there. When we finally were allowed to go back home, I found that our sewage pipe had burst and went up all of the side of the house. And because I live on the front house, and there's 3 other houses behind us. So all that sewage came and it just blew this all over the side of the home. So the city council wouldn't let us to come stay in the house, and I wouldn't stay in the home because I knew I would be safe down here. You couldn't even get into the home. The first one, it took some shakes, but the second one just threw everything out of control. Flood through the whole home. Cylinder that was flooded the lounge to all the bedrooms. You couldn't get into the house. Fridge freezer kai all over the ground. Just, things out of its packets, and it was just a mess. I didn't realise how, when you as a parent, you take everything for granted, and you even take your own children for granted. And when they're not around, it can be quite distressing, and that's how I've been feeling. Quite low in my family support, and all my family here, the Parata family, have been my support, a huge support, including the ones at the marae, the runanga, the executive of the runanga. So everyone's been absolutely fantastic to try and get me back on track and to try and move forward with my children. And if we can do that all together, then we're going to be fine. My family in the North Island struggled with it. I had a flight for my children to come home for the holidays, but they were coming home for good at the time, and they didn't put them on the plane. And I couldn't understand why. These are my children, but why did you do that? And their reply was, we don't think it's safe for the children to be there. And I just said, what part of don't you think that's safe? Is it because we live in Christchurch? Because we don't live in Christchurch, we're over the hill. Well, then that was like, but then you get the boulders, and it was really hard to try and explain that. I thought we were just getting ourselves back on feet and back in direction, and my children were coming home. And that was really hard. I suffered with that one. But so did my husband. To see him weep for the first time. There's a lot of things happening at the moment, and we've had our share of it, and who knows. But why live on that? Why, I feel that they seem to think that this, doomsday is here, lives here. And, and I don't see that at all. What I do believe is that, we need to be together. And for that to happen is, I want my family home. My mum and dad are buried at the Urapa up here, at the Urapa. And like I said, this is where I grew up. I don't really want to be anywhere else but here. And I think that was another thing that my family understood too, here at Aupaki, the whānau here, is that they were willing to help in any way to assist me in getting my children home and moving on.